Welcome to The Explainer, where we dig into the data to make sense of the big shifts happening all around us. And today, we're talking about a massive change in the UK housing market, a change that's deciding who's going to be your next landlord.
Okay, so let's just get right into it. If you're renting right now, you know exactly what this question means. It feels impossible out there, right? Well, it turns out the answer isn't just, a simple market blip. It's something way, way bigger.
In fact, the analysis we're looking at today says we're in the middle of a huge, deliberate, and probably irreversible change. It's this quiet revolution they call the Great Transition. It's all about a massive shift in property ownership from individuals to corporations.
And this, right here, is the result. Just look at that number. That's not a slowdown. That's the market actively shrinking. We've lost almost 330,000 rental homes from the market. That's the real reason for the crisis. So the big question is, who's leaving and why?
To really get what's happening now, we've got to rewind the clock a little. See, for decades, the UK rental market wasn't this corporate machine. It was dominated by a very specific type of person, a character who's now basically an endangered species.
Yeah, this was the golden age of the dinner party landlord. You probably know the type. Starting in the mid-90s, with easy credit and amazing tax breaks, buying a second home to rent out felt like a sure thing. It was this huge middle-class trend, and it created a market that was almost entirely run by individuals. But that whole era, it's completely over.
And it's over, because the rules of the game were totally rewritten. The government started taking that old model apart, piece by piece. And in doing so, they created this brand new, kind of tragic character in our story. A landlord who's still in the game, but is basically paralyzed. And that brings us to this key concept, the zombie landlord. Think of them as being economically frozen. They're not buying anything new, they're not investing in their properties, and honestly, they really want to sell, but they can't because getting out would cost them a fortune.
So what makes a zombie a zombie? Well, first, they're just holding on to what they bought years ago. They're not actively investing. Second, they're deeply pessimistic. They would sell up tomorrow if they could do it without a massive tax hit. But they can't, so they're trapped. They're kind of like the living dead of the housing market, taking up space but not adding any life or new supply. And this chart? Wow, this shows you the weapon that created them. It was a tax change called Section 24. And what it did was stop individual landlords from being able to deduct their mortgage interest costs from their rental income. So look at the math here. For a higher rate taxpayer, the profit on the exact same property just collapsed from $9,000 to $2,000. And with today's interest rates, it can actually turn into a loss. It basically made the old business model impossible overnight.
So as the zombies are being squeezed out, guess what? The system is basically rolling out the red carpet for a totally different kind of landlord to take their place.
And the data on this is just wild. Look at who's buying now. Half of all new landlords setting up a company are millennials. And the old guard, the baby boomers, who were the original dinner party landlords, they're now just 7% of new market activity. It's a total generational flip. And this is the key takeaway, really. We're not just swapping people, we're swapping entire mindsets. The old guard is stuck, holding on out of inertia. The new guard, they're dynamic, they're growing, they're using tax-savvy limited companies, and they're motivated by pure business, not just a retirement plan. And it's not just these new school individual investors. They've got company. And we're talking about the real heavy hitters. Global pension funds, massive corporate investors, the big names. They're now building and buying entire neighborhoods from the ground up just to rent out.
So you might be thinking, okay, this is all interesting, but what does it have to do with my rent going through the roof? Well, this is where it all comes together. This battle between the old and new landlord is what's causing all the pain. It actually comes down to a really simple analogy from physics.
Yeah, the source material breaks it down like this. To understand the rental crisis, you just need to understand two forces. The first is the market's overall speed, and the second is its acceleration. So let's talk about speed first. The market speed is actually negative. It's going in reverse. The amateur landlords, the zombies, are selling and getting out much faster than the new professionals are coming in. So the total number of homes available to rent is literally shrinking every day.
But here's the twist. At the exact same time, we have this incredible acceleration. The way the market is structured is changing at lightning speed. Almost every single new purchase is being made by a professional company. So even while the market is shrinking, it's professionalizing at an exponential rate.
And what does this create? It creates a huge vacuum, which the analysis calls the missing middle. Think about it. The zombies are selling off regular, affordable houses in normal towns and suburbs. The new corporate landlords are building shiny, expensive apartment blocks in city centers. They're not replacing like for like. And that gap, that missing middle of affordable family rental homes, is the engine driving your rent into the stratosphere.
So the biggest thing to take away from all this is that this is not a temporary problem. This is it. This is a permanent, fundamental restructuring of who owns the homes that we all live in.
And by the end of the decade, the rental market is probably going to look something like this. You'll have a two-tier system. At the very top, you'll have the giant corporate funds with their purpose-built blocks. And then you'll have this huge chunk of the market run by those super professional, smaller companies led by millennials. And the old zombie landlords, they'll have mostly just faded away.
I think this one sentence from the analysis just says it all, doesn't it? That whole 30-year experiment of trying to make everyone a property investor, well, it's been deliberately shut down.
Which kind of leaves us with this final, really big question. A professional market, in theory, means better quality homes, more stability, but what do we lose when we swap that local, amateur landlord, for better or for worse, with a corporate director sitting in an office hundreds of miles away? That is the billion-pound question at the very heart of this great transition.